The Fall of Earth. Captain Maya Reeves stood motionless on the observation deck of the Resilience, the last evacuation vessel to leave Earth's orbit. Through the viewport, her homeworld receded into the distance, a once vibrant blue marble now wrapped in angry storms and the artificial constellations of orbital wreckage. The Vraxian ultimatum had been simple: surrender or be eliminated. Humanity had chosen a third option. Final count, Dr. Shevchenko? Maya asked, her voice steady despite the hollowness in her chest. The chief medical officer looked up from her tablet. Just under 60,000 aboard the Resilience. Combined with the other evacuation ships, we've managed to save approximately 12 million humans. She didn't state the obvious, that over 9 billion souls had been left behind. Maya nodded silently. The Vraxians had given humanity 1 week to capitulate after their arrival. Their massive ships had positioned themselves over every major city on Earth, their technology so far beyond human capabilities that resistance seemed futile. When Earth's united military forces launched a desperate counterattack, the Vraxians responded with targeted strikes against military installations only, a clinical demonstration of their surgical precision and overwhelming power. The Sanctuary Protocol? Maya asked. Operational, responded Commander Takahashi, approaching from the bridge. The deep bunkers were sealed before we departed. If the projections hold, they can sustain perhaps 2 million people for several decades underground. After that, his voice trailed off. The Resilience shuddered as it engaged its experimental jump drive, designed by Dr. Eliza Santos in the final months before the invasion. The Vraxians had control of most jump gate technology in the galaxy, but Dr. Santos had discovered a method of folding space that operated on different principles the Vraxians hadn't anticipated. They think we're finished, Maya said, watching as the stars stretched into lines of light. The Galactic Assembly voted unanimously to recognize Vraxian sovereignty over the Sol system. Not a single species stood with us. The Talresian ambassador actually laughed when our representatives pleaded for intervention. Commander Takahashi added bitterly, "A species that lacks unified governance deserves subjugation." Their official statement. Then they'll believe what they want to believe, Maya replied, her jaw tightening as she turned away from the viewport. As far as the galaxy is concerned, humanity is scattered, broken, and no longer a factor in galactic politics. Perhaps that's our greatest advantage. 3 months later, the Resilience arrived at its designated coordinates in the Proxima Centauri system, only to discover 4 other human vessels already establishing an outpost on a moon orbiting a gas giant. The reunion brought both relief and heartache. Many ships had been lost during the journey, their fate unknown. Admiral Zhao, commander of what remained of Earth's United Space Force, convened an emergency council aboard his vessel, the Defiance. Representatives from each surviving ship gathered in the cramped war room. "We cannot remain together," Admiral Zhao announced, her weathered face grim beneath the harsh lighting. "Our long-range scanners have detected Vraxian scout ships in the adjacent sectors. If they find us clustered in one location, they'll finish what began at Earth." "You're suggesting we separate further?" Captain Alvarez of the Hope asked incredulously. "We've barely survived the journey here. Our resources are critical, our people traumatized." "I'm implementing Protocol Diaspora," Admiral Zhao replied. The room fell silent. Protocol Diaspora had been developed as the absolute last resort. The deliberate scattering of humanity across hundreds of star systems with minimal communication between settlements to prevent detection or coordinated elimination. Maya spoke up. "If we scatter completely, we lose what remains of our unity, our shared knowledge." "No," Admiral Zhao countered. "If we scatter, we gain something more valuable: diversity of development. Different human settlements will face different challenges, develop different solutions, will evolve in ways we never could as a single entity." The council debated for 3 days before reaching a consensus. Humanity would scatter across the stars, maintaining strict communication blackouts and meeting only once per decade at randomized coordinates to share advances and maintain genetic diversity. Each ship would seek out habitable worlds or establish hidden stations in resource-rich systems far from established alien territories. Over the following decades, humanity adapted in ways no one could have predicted. On Frost, the ice moon where Maya's people settled, they developed specialized thermal technologies and bioengineering that allowed them to thrive in the extreme cold. The colonists of the Hope, who established an orbital habitat around a neutron star, pioneered radiation-resistant materials and quantum computing beyond anything developed on Earth. The settlers of Nebula Station, led by Admiral Zhao, focused on stealth technologies and advanced propulsion systems, always staying one step ahead of Vraxian patrols. And deep in an unexplored asteroid field, the descendants of the Liberty developed unprecedented genetic modifications that enhanced human capabilities. What the Vraxians and the Galactic Assembly failed to understand was the fundamental nature of humanity, the ability to adapt, to endure, and to thrive under pressure. Each isolated human settlement became a crucible of innovation, where necessity drove evolution at an unprecedented pace. Dr. Santos, now working from a hidden laboratory on Frost, made the first breakthrough. It's not just that our technology is evolving, she explained to Maya during a rare moment of calm. We're evolving. The genetic data is clear. The children born in these environments are showing accelerated adaptation. What does that mean? Maya asked, studying the holographic displays of DNA strands. It means we're changing faster than any species has a right to, Dr. Santos replied with a hint of wonder in her voice. The children born on Frost show enhanced metabolic efficiency in cold environments. Those born on the Hope display increased resistance to radiation. Those genetic markers shouldn't stabilize for hundreds of generations, but we're seeing them establish within 3. How is that possible? I have a theory, Dr. Santos said hesitantly. The Vraxians' initial scans of Earth focused on our technology, our weapons, our infrastructure. They never conducted thorough biological studies of humans. They didn't know about junk DNA, the vast portions of our genome that appeared non-coding but may have been dormant, waiting for the right environmental triggers. What neither of them knew was that similar discoveries were being made in every human settlement. The harsh environments, the constant stress, the exposure to new radiation patterns and gravitational conditions, all were activating dormant aspects of human physiology that had lain silent for millennia. 50 years after the Exodus, the representatives of the scattered human settlements met at the predetermined coordinates. The changes were immediately evident. Diversity in height, skin pigmentation, even subtle anatomical differences reflected adaptation to various environments. But more striking were the technological advances each group brought. The Vraxians believe we are extinct, Maya told the assembly. Now a woman in her 70s, her body preserved by the life extension technologies developed on Frost. Their official records classify humans as subjugated species designation H927. And yet here we are, not merely surviving but evolving. The gathering was interrupted by an emergency transmission from the outer sensor network. Vraxian warship detected. They're scanning the area. The humans scattered immediately, returning to their hidden settlements, but the close call confirmed what many had suspected. The Vraxians were not merely content with humanity's exile. They were actively hunting down any remaining human outposts. In the following years, several human settlements were discovered and destroyed by Vraxian forces. The official reason given to the Galactic Assembly was quarantine enforcement of a biohazardous species, but the survivors knew the truth. The Vraxians, the self-proclaimed guardians of galactic order, feared human potential. What they didn't know was that each destroyed settlement only strengthened humanity's resolve. Each attack confirmed that humans posed a threat the Vraxians couldn't ignore. And with each passing year, the scattered remnants of humanity grew stronger, more adapted, and more determined to reclaim their place among the stars. As the first century of exile approached its end, A message was transmitted through the quantum entanglement network that Dr. Santos had established before her death, a network undetectable by Vraxian technology. The message contained just 3 words: Earth still lives. The Reclamation. 100 years after the fall of Earth, representatives from 37 human settlements gathered in the shadow of a black hole, its gravitational lensing providing perfect cover from Vraxian sensors. Admiral Zhao had long since passed away, but her granddaughter, Admiral Lin Zhao, now led what had become known as the Shadow Fleet. "We've spent a century hiding, adapting, evolving." Admiral Zhao addressed the assembly. "Perhaps it's time we stopped running." Captain Elias Reeves, grandson of Maya Reeves and current leader of the Frost Colony, stood to address the gathering. The genetic adaptations were obvious in his appearance: taller than old Earth humans, with slightly enlarged eyes adapted for the dim light of a distant sun, and skin that reflected heat rather than absorbed it. "You're suggesting open conflict with the most powerful species in the galaxy?" he asked. "Even with our advances, we number fewer than 30 million across all colonies." "Not open conflict," Admiral Zhao clarified. "Something more elegant. The Vraxians believe we are primitive, desperate refugees. They don't know what we've become in isolation." She activated a holographic display showing the technological achievements of the various human settlements. Quantum tunnel technology developed by the Hoke Colony, temporal phase shifting pioneered by the Nebula Station, genetic enhancements created by the Liberty Outpost, and the nanite swarms of frost that could rebuild matter at the molecular level. "And they certainly don't know about this," she said, changing the display to show Earth, still scared, but visibly healing. The sanctuary protocol succeeded. There are humans still living beneath Earth's surface, adapted to subterranean existence and developing their own unique technologies. The assembly murmured in shock. "Contact with Earth had been lost during the Exodus." "How do you know this?" asked Director Chen of the Liberty Outpost. "Because they contacted us," Admiral Zhao replied. 3 months ago, using quantum entanglement communications we left behind. They call themselves the Earthbound, and they number in the millions. They've spent a century directly under the noses of the Vraxian occupation forces." She deactivated the hologram. "The time for hiding is over. The time for reclamation is beginning." As the human representatives debated the revelation, a Vraxian scout ship was completing its routine sweep of the supposedly uninhabited Ta CD system. Aboard the vessel, Science Officer Krulvax noticed an anomalous energy signature emanating from the 4th planet's moon. "Probable human activity detected," he reported to his commander. "Recommend immediate sterilization protocols." The commander nodded dispassionately. "Prepare orbital bombardment. Standard extinction package." What the Vraxians couldn't know was that the energy signature had been placed deliberately by the human resistance. As the Vraxian warship moved into position and launched its attack, sensors hidden throughout the system recorded every detail of Vraxian weapons technology, shield frequencies, and tactical algorithms. Back at the Black Hole Gathering, the Human Coalition reviewed the data. Dr. Imani Williams, great-granddaughter of Dr. Santos and head of the Frost Research Division, highlighted key vulnerabilities in Vraxian systems. "Their technology is impressive but predictable," she explained. "They haven't made any significant advances in a millennium. Why innovate when you're already at the top?" But that predictability is their weakness. The coalition spent months analyzing the data, developing countermeasures, and planning their response. The plan they formulated was audacious. They would not attack the Vraxians directly. Instead, they would reveal themselves to the galaxy in a way that could not be ignored. The first step came at the annual Galactic Assembly, where representatives from the 200 most advanced species gathered to discuss interstellar matters. The Vraxian delegation was presenting their yearly report on extinct and subjugated species when the Chamber's communication systems were overridden. A holographic figure appeared in the center of the assembly, a human woman, her features clearly marked by the genetic adaptations of Nebula Station. Esteemed representatives of the Galactic Assembly, she began, I am Admiral Lin Zhao of humanity's Shadow Fleet. For a century, you have believed the Vraxian lie that humanity was broken, subjugated, or extinct. Today, that lie ends. Displays throughout the chamber activated, showing evidence of Vraxian attacks on peaceful human settlements, attacks that violated the Assembly's own laws regarding the treatment of sentient species. The Vraxians fear what they cannot control. Admiral Zhou continued. They fear adaptation and evolution. Most of all, they fear humanity's potential. Today, we reclaim our place among the stars. The transmission ended, leaving the Assembly in chaos. The Vraxian delegation demanded immediate action against the human insurgency, but many species, seeing evidence of Vraxian violations, hesitated. The seeds of doubt had been planted. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, coordinated operations led by the Human Coalition began systematically dismantling Vraxian influence. Quantum tunneling technology allowed human operatives to bypass Vraxian security systems. Temporal phase shifting rendered human ships practically invisible to Vraxian sensors. Nanite swarms reprogrammed Vraxian defense networks from within. The Vraxian High Command, faced with a threat they hadn't anticipated, ordered a full-scale attack on all suspected human worlds. But as their fleets departed Vraxian space, they discovered their jump gate network had been compromised. Ships arrived at random coordinates, separated and vulnerable. On Earth, the moment the Vraxian defense grid faltered, the Earthbound emerged from their underground cities. A century of living beneath the occupation had forged them into masters of subterfuge and asymmetrical warfare. Within hours, they had seized control of the primary Vraxian command centers on the planet. The supreme overseer of the Vraxian Imperium, Cortaxin, found himself surrounded by humans who had infiltrated his personal guard. Captain Elias Reeves stepped forward, now representing the United Human Coalition. Your species attempted to subjugate mine, Elias stated calmly. You failed. You are primitive, Cortaxin sneered. A momentary setback will not change the inevitable outcome. The Vraxian Imperium has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. And perhaps that's your problem, Elias replied. Stagnation breeds weakness. Humanity faced extinction, and it forced us to adapt, to change, to become more than we were. Your species has been dominant for so long you've forgotten how to evolve. Within days, the news spread throughout the galaxy. The Vraxian Imperium, the uncontested power for millennia, had been outmaneuvered by a species they had dismissed as primitive. The Galactic Assembly convened an emergency session, and for the first time in recorded history, representatives of humanity were invited to speak. Admiral Zhao addressed the Assembly, her image transmitted from Earth. We do not seek dominance or revenge. Humanity has learned the value of diversity, of adaptation, of cooperation in the face of extinction. We ask only for our rightful place among the stars and recognition of our sovereignty. The Galactic Assembly, seeing the opportunity to end Vraxian hegemony, voted to recognize humanity's claim to the Sol system and all established human settlements. The Vraxian Imperium, while still powerful, was forced to accept significant constraints on its military activities. As the diplomatic negotiations continued, the human settlements began the process of reconnection and rebuilding. Earth, still bearing the scars of Vraxian occupation, became a symbol of resilience rather than defeat. The underground cities of the Earthbound opened to the sky once more, and the technologies developed in isolation across human space merged to create something new and unprecedented. They thought we were broken, Maya Reeves had said a century earlier. Perhaps that's our greatest advantage. She couldn't have known how right she was. Humanity had not just survived, it had transformed. The scattered fragments of a supposedly defeated species had recombined into something stronger, more adaptable, and more united than ever before. The species that had been dismissed as primitive now took its place among the stars, forever changing the balance of power in the galaxy. And as humans looked to the future, they carried with them the most important lesson of their near extinction. True strength lies not in domination, but in the ability to adapt, to endure, and to rise again from the ashes of defeat. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again.